One world currency.
The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's live edition. It is June 13th, 2013. Tonight I have a jam-packed broadcast for you. As of 10:30, I will be bringing a guest onto the broadcast. She's been on before. Last time I had her on was back in March, actually right before I came over to Unbound, so I'm glad I'll be able to bring her back for the Unbound listeners here. Her name's Karen Schoen, and she is a radio show host and an activist here in Florida. She's against Agenda 21. She exposes the educational system, what's going on, not only here in Florida but throughout the country, and more. And tonight we're going to be going over a few different things, including a new House bill that was just passed in Florida that's going to affect a lot of homeowners and a few other things that we're going to be getting into. So she's coming up at 10:30, but until then, I have a few other things I'm going to talk about. I'm going to be getting into with you guys here coming up in the long segment and the following segment after that, and then Karen will be joining us. And pretty soon, by the way, I'm going to be going over to a local an outdoor gun range down here to interview the owner, who I've interviewed her before. The feds are trying to take the land from them, and a lot of it is attached to Agenda 21, and it's a very popular outdoor range out here. It's a private range. It's not a state-run range, which many of the ranges around in Florida are. It's not run by any county or state or anything like that. It's or city, which, like as I said, some of the ranges in Florida are run by all three. Not at the same time, but some are run by the state, some are run by maybe a county, or some are run by a city in certain instances. This one is a private range. Anyone can go. I've shot there before myself. You have to be a member to shoot. But I've shot out there before myself, and I actually had the pleasure of interviewing the lady that owns the property a couple years ago. And we wrote an article about it and did a video about it. In fact, it was one of the channels that got obliterated. I actually I'll see if I can find it and re-upload it. But I'm going to be going out there and interviewing her again, so stay tuned for that. It's Agenda 21 hitting you right here at home locally, so perfect example of it. Might as well get it out there. So stay tuned for that and more. And with that, we got a break sneaking up on us. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back in just a few short seconds. 59 of them to be exact. Stay tuned. New push for national ID. Talked about this the last week or the week before I had mentioned this about there is in the I think it's the Immigration Reform Bill, if I remember correctly, there is a wording to construct a national ID card, which they've been trying to do forever. And everybody's like, oh, why not? Why not have a national ID card? Because that's one step closer to turning your card off when you're a bad citizen, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you understand how that kind of stuff works? Oh, Popeye, that will never happen. Right, and the NSA won't spy on you and read your email and record your phone conversations. Right. Sure, they don't do that. Right? They don't do that at all. No. All right. So anyway, there's this push for a new national ID. And ironically, still fighting the good fight is Dr. Ron Paul. Probably more effective now that he's out of Congress than when he was in. But, and I'm not picking on him. It's just when you're surrounded by a-holes, what do you expect? But this is a warning that I found today. It was posted on from the Campaign for Liberty. And again, I'm not a big cult of personality follower. If you know from the past, I've torn into the Ron Paul campaign for the things that happened during the presidential campaign and the things that were done during the RNC to their supporters and everything else. But with all that aside, this message from Dr. Paul is important, and it's referencing the national ID card, and I think that it's important that everybody hear what's going on. So I'm going to give about 4.5 minutes to Dr. Paul so you can hear what he has to say with an update about the push for a new national ID card, because remember, the powers that shouldn't be will never let a good crisis go to waste.
It's by far the worst national ID scheme the states have come up with yet. They're still hiding their true intentions, but in the wake of recent events, the statists believe they have the perfect excuse to ratchet up their attacks on our remaining liberties. Right now, the so-called Gang of Eight in the United States Senate, including Senators John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and Chuck Schumer, are working with President Obama to sneak this massive national ID card power grab into a new immigration reform law that's being used as a cover for all sorts of statist madness. Hello, this is Dr. Ron Paul, Chairman of Campaign for Liberty, with an urgent message. I hardly know where to begin. The 844-page so-called immigration reform monstrosity is a statist dream. Not only does this bill increase federal spending, it mandates every American carry a national ID card with their photo and creates a new federal database containing biometric information on every American, such as fingerprints and retinal scans. The card would be required for all U.S. workers regardless of place of birth, making it illegal for anyone to hold a job in the United States who doesn't attain an ID card. All employers would be required to purchase an ID scanner to verify the ID cards by making sure the information on the card matches the information in the federal database. So every time any citizen applies for a job, the government would know, and you can bet it's only a matter of time until ID scans will be required to travel, attend public events, or even make routine purchases as well. Of course, the most dangerous part is the biometric tracking technology, which would allow federal bureaucrats to track our every move. This is exactly the type of battle that often decides whether a country remains free or continues down a slide toward tyranny. Once government bureaucrats know exactly how we live our lives, it won't be long until they ramp up their efforts to run them. It will only be a matter of time until they spend their work days making sure you and I don't go anywhere, read anything, eat anything, or drink anything they think we shouldn't. Once that door opens, how long will it be before the statists start telling us what we can teach our children or where we can go to church? But while most Americans get caught up with the talk of amnesty, paths to citizenship, and other hot-button political buzzwords, these are simply being used as a cover by the statists in both parties who want to conceal the real threat. That's why I'm hoping you'll sign your No National ID petitions to Campaign for Liberty immediately to make your voice clearly heard on this critical issue. If there is good news to report, it's that thanks to the help of activists like you, liberty-minded Americans have been able to render the big government politicians' previous national ID schemes nearly toothless in numerous states across the country. But now the statists have an answer for that. Instead of mandating that individual states comply with new standards, the federal government will just take over the process and claim there's nothing to fear about tying a tamper-proof biometric Social Security card into a national database containing photos and other information. Well, you and I know better. It could hardly be worse. That's why I hope you'll take action today. The only way to defeat a national ID card is to contact Americans from coast to coast and explain exactly what's at stake. With your help, Campaign for Liberty can send powerful emails and run Facebook and Internet banner ads to alert liberty-loving Americans to the national ID scheme included in the new Comprehensive Immigration Reform Bill. But I'm afraid that simply won't be enough. Campaign for Liberty staff tells me if Campaign for Liberty can pull out all the stops, there's an additional 12 million folks they can reach through their targeted direct mail and phone programs. And finally, if they can raise the resources, Campaign for Liberty would also like to run a hard-hitting newspaper, radio, and TV ads explaining the threat we face with a new national ID card. Of course, such a massive grassroots mobilization program isn't cheap, but it's the only way to stop this dangerous national ID scheme from becoming the law of the land. Because this fight is so critical, I'm counting on you to make the most generous contribution you can to help Campaign for Liberty defeat the statist national ID scheme. Passage of the national ID card would virtually guarantee the last vestiges of freedom we enjoy as Americans would be seriously jeopardized. So no matter how much you give, your contribution is urgently needed and will be deeply appreciated. Please sign your No National ID petitions to Campaign for Liberty to make your voice heard. And then send the most generous contribution you can afford right away to help Campaign for Liberty defeat the statist national ID scheme.
Now, I will add my own little side caveat. I'm glad Dr. Paul and Campaign for Liberty put out the information. If you feel like supporting them and you want to give your money, then you can. I personally am a little wary about giving money to Campaign for Liberty after what happened with the whole 2012 election thing, and then, where did all that money go, and Jesse Benton and all this other stuff. So there's a lot of questions. There's some shadiness going on there. So if you want to give, you can give. I wanted to air the whole thing. I just let it air. I didn't feel like going through it and cutting out the part where he asks for the donation. If you feel like helping Campaign for Liberty, go ahead. I have my own views on it, but whatever, that's your call. You're free, open individuals. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But at the very least, educate others what's going on. If you're a blogger, write about this. If you make YouTube videos, talk about it and make videos about it. If you're a radio show host, talk about this. Try to find people to talk about it, bring them on as guests. This thing is really important. They'll sneak this in and then pass it, and yay, immigration reform, we passed it. And by the way, now, no more New Jersey driver's license or California driver's license or, Maine driver's license or Florida driver's license. No. Don't worry, the states, no more state DMV. No more division of motor vehicles in your state. What do you think about that? We can just get rid of the DMV dealing with licensing, right? We don't need that. The federal government will take care of that for you. Oh, you've been a bad citizen, have you? Did you piss off the federal government? No driving privileges for you. No. You can't drive anymore. We had to take your ID away from you. I'm sorry, sir. You can't work anymore. We had to take your ID away from you. You were a bad citizen. We had to turn your purchasing power on your card off. You can't get into certain buildings. You don't think that's coming? That's what they want to do with the RFID chip. National ID is a step towards that. That's what this whole national ID thing is about. So it's important that you know what's going on. Again, if you want to donate to Campaign for Liberty, it's your thing. But I wanted to play that clip because it's important that look, Dr. Paul brought some good information to the table, and I figured rather than sit here and regurgitate what he said, I'd let you just hear it come from him and then give you my commentary on it. And I've already talked about this. Ad infinitum. This is another push towards total and utter control. It's the only way to put it. They wanted to do this after 9/11, and a lot of people were for it. Oh, national ID card, that's great. Yeah, that's not real great. My mother was against that. She was for a lot of things coming with the police state. after 9/11. She agreed, because she bought into the official story. She didn't agree with the national ID card. Brought her back to days, stories that she was told by her mother and her father from World War II, living in occupied Holland. Papers, please. That's what a national ID will be. See, right now you can walk down the street, and if a cop stops you and says, you got ID on you? You don't have to present it to him. There's no law that says you have to present him identification. You could tell him, my name's, Bob Smith. My name's, Joe Jackson, Sean Johnson, Chris McGillicuddy, whatever your name is, You don't have to present ID if you're walking down the street. You know that, right? You don't have to present an identification for just walking down the street. We live in a free society, somewhat. Well, okay, we really don't live in a free society anymore, but you still. This thing passes, it'll be papers, please. Walking down the street. Do you have your card? You got your card on you? There's a show called Fringe on... it's like an X-Files, like a modern-day version of the X-Files, which there's a lot of things that they throw in there. You'd be surprised when you watch it. My wife watches it, and I've watched a few episodes myself. One of the... it's got this whole plot line of alternate universes and all this stuff, but one of the universes there, one of the realities, whatever you want to call it, they have a card called a Show Me. There's no driver's licenses, no other IDs. It's a Show Me. On the Show Me, like if you get pulled over by an officer or an agent or whatever, they say, where's your Show Me? And you have to give it to them. It's a plastic card. And on the card it has your name, picture of you, your address, your date of birth, your blood type. I don't remember if the Social Security card is still number was attached to it, but probably. And then it's got who your relatives are, like your kids, your spouse. I mean, everything. Now, again, it might be TV. It's probably, their way of putting little things in here and there and get you used to it. But in the show, in that reality, you can't do anything. You can't do anything without this card, the Show Me. You can't take public transportation at all. No buses, no cabs. You can't even take a taxi cab without this thing. Cash? You can't pay cash. You need to have a Show Me card and slide it before the taxi cab can even take off. Same thing with a bus. When you get on the bus, you got to slide your little Show Me ID. That's what this is going to be. That's exactly where this is headed. Where's your Show Me? Where's your ID? Papers, please? Or should I say it in the German accent? Papers, please? It's my best German accent I could throw out there right now. Usually I could do it with a little bit of practice better, but... Should I click my heels together? With my should I go dress up in a little snazzy gray suit with motorcycle boots on? Click my heels together? That's where this country's headed. Papers, please? You ready to show your papers to go to the store? Well, it's only right. It makes you safer. How about giving up your cell phone at a traffic stop? License, registration, insurance, and cell phone, please. What do you think about that? We'll get into that on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. So, what was I talking about when we were going to break? I said license, registration, insurance, and cell phone? Oh, yeah. Check out what New Jersey's trying to do.
A new crackdown on New Jersey roads could cost you your cell phone. A controversial new plan would target your phone if you get into an accident, forcing you to share your private information with police. CBS 2's Derek Dennis has more now on this. He's behind the wheel in one of our exclusive Mobile 2 units, driving on the New Jersey Turnpike tonight. Derek?
Well, this story's been the talk among legal circles and among drivers here on the Turnpike in Secaucus, New Jersey. What happens if you get into an accident while talking or texting on your phone? Well, your phone could be confiscated on the spot. License, registration, insurance, and cell phone. A New Jersey lawmaker wants drivers to hand over their phones to police in an accident. No warrant necessary to check it as the cause of a crash.
I'm against that. You can't just take my phone out unless I'm doing something wrong with it.
I think it's okay. It's an excellent deterrent.
I think it is kind of fair because if you are paying attention to the road, the phone shouldn't matter.
The proposed bill from New Jersey State Senator James Hozoffel is labeled S-2783 and says whenever an operator of a motor vehicle has been involved in an accident resulting in death, bodily injury, or property damage, a police officer may confiscate the operator's handheld wireless telephone if the officer has reasonable grounds to believe that the operator was operating a handheld wireless telephone while driving.
Now, I know that they think, well, I have to check. Oh, you made a text. It says here you made a text 5 minutes ago. That means you had to be on the road. Well, what happens if there's no texts that say that it's from like 5 minutes ago, but the last text is like an hour and a half ago, and the guy clicks on it, and maybe there's a naked photo of the guy's girlfriend, and the cop goes, oh, what's this? Who's this? Is this girl underage? Who's this? Who's it? Look at, whoa, why is she naked? And well, that's my girlfriend. Well, why is she texting you naked photos? Sir, why don't you close that out? That's got nothing to do with my accident. Oh, I'm the officer. I'll ask you the questions. Why is she texting you naked photos of, how do I know she's not underage? You know, put your hands behind your back. That's the kind of crap you'll see. Or how about this? How about, say someone was in Amsterdam, and they have a picture on their phone from when they were in Amsterdam, or they're out in a state where it's legal to smoke cannabis, and they have a picture of themselves smoking a joint. And I'm not saying an illegal photo, listen to me, illegal, doing air quotes, illegal photo of them doing it. I'm talking about, first of all, who really cares? But let's say that. Let's say someone lives in a state where it's not legal to smoke cannabis, and there's a picture of them smoking cannabis on their phone, and the cop doesn't know where the picture was taken. It could have been taken in Amsterdam, Colorado, anywhere, right? But he says, oh, there's a picture of you smoking cannabis, doing drugs. I have to arrest you. Here's evidence of you doing drugs. Well, officer, that picture was taken when I was in Colorado 6 months ago. If you look at the timestamp on it. How do I know that? How do I know that, kid? How do I know if you were in Amsterdam or Colorado? We'll let the courts decide if that's true. For right now, put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for, consumption of cannabis or marijuana or illegal drugs. But sir, you don't have any evidence. Yeah, I do. I have photographic evidence. Sir, that's from 6 months ago. It doesn't matter. And some of you will say, well, you deserve it if you smoke pot. Or, well, you deserve it if you're an idiot. You have that picture on your phone. Really? Really? The phone is your personal private device. How about if you have a laptop? What happens if your phone doubles as like one of those little tablet type phones? Like a Galaxy Note 2 or something like that, and you do a lot of work on it. Huh? And it's your personal computer, too. Then what? Then what about that? Oh, well, you shouldn't keep personal information on that, then? Shouldn't keep personal information on your smartphone, then? Huh? Pictures like that? It's absolutely insane. The bill would make this thing a felony. Listen to this.
I understand the frustration and wanting to address this issue, but you have to do it constitutionally.
Manhattan civil rights attorney Norman Siegel says cell phones are private property and so far have only been used by police in criminal cases with a warrant.
The Fourth Amendment protects citizens from the government seizing and searching their property unless there's reasonable suspicion and/or probable cause.
We caught up with Governor Chris Christie on the Turnpike to get his take. No comment on the proposed cell phone bill for now.
I'm going to consider that at some point. How you doing, brother?
And the fines for this proposed bill include up to $300 in costs, as well as up to 2 points on your license. Again.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay. I thought they made. I thought for some reason. Oh no, it was something else that they made a felony today. See, there's so many laws and regulations that get turned into things. It's hard to keep track. 2 points though on your license. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you just joining us, as I said in the beginning of the broadcast, from the half-hour mark on, from 10:30 till the end of the broadcast tonight, I am graced by the presence of a guest that I've had on before, and I am just excited to have back on, ladies and gentlemen. She is an activist, as I said, a radio show host, and so much more. Very on point with her information, and every time she has come on, she's always brought just a not only info to the table, but a certain type of candor with it. So, without further ado, let me bring her on, Karen Schoen. Karen, welcome back to the broadcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Popeye. It is such a pleasure to be online with you again, and you're so wonderful to have me back again. I really appreciate it. It's been quite a time since we spoke before, and a lot of things have happened, and my gosh, where does one begin? But we should begin in the beginning, and that's in Florida.
Yeah, let's look at HB 87. What is this? Go ahead, and I'm going to give you the floor. Pick it up wherever you want to pick it up with HB 87.
Okay, well, first we have to understand that the banks committed fraud, and that our Constitution protects our private property. And our founding fathers felt that the most important thing in America was private property, because that's how you build wealth. So let's, get that. That's a historical fact. HB 87 allows the banks to commit further fraud. Okay, now how am I saying the banks committed fraud? Well, the banks got together with Wall Street, separated the mortgage note from the payment. So it's like somebody took the title to the car and somebody took the payment book to the car. And somebody that took the title sold it and kept on selling it again and again and again. And the person with the payment book, that's that bank, he was the one that was collecting all the payments. And the homeowner was making their payments on time until the government threw 3 bills from Bill Clinton, one being NAFTA, which allowed the companies to send our jobs overseas, 2 being the Community Reinvestment Act, which said that the banks had to do risky loans, and 3 being the repeal of Glass-Steagall, which said that commercial banks could only do commercial banking. And the repeal of Glass-Steagall was kind of like the nail in the coffin, because that let commercial banks do everything: mortgages, title, insurance, real estate, all under one roof, and massive fraud was created in 2 ways. One, electronic signing, and that electronic documentation of paperwork, reproductions of things electronically. And that was called MERS, M-E-R-S, and that was the Mortgage Electronic Reporting System. So mortgages were put on the computer, and then the banks had these computerized loans that they just flipped around all over the place and sold them and sold them and resold them. In the meantime, the banks never reported to the municipalities, because each time a deed was transferred, they're supposed to pay dock stamps and other permitting and fees. So the municipalities never got paid, so they're out big bucks also. And the TARP was put in place as the people began to lose their jobs and could not pay their mortgages. TARP was then, that's the Toxic Asset Relief Fund from George Bush, that was set up to give relief to the banks. Now, the way it was supposed to work was that the banks would get this money, and then they would be able to turn around to the homeowner and renegotiate a loan based on a lower pricing or lower interest, and assist the homeowner as they were losing their jobs. Instead of doing that, they took the money and gave themselves bonuses because they're so wonderful. So they were paid for the house, 80% of the value of the house. In addition to that, Wall Street took these mortgage notes and lumped them together in groups of 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, and sold them on the open market to municipalities and pension funds and other countries and businesses and all kinds of nice places. So they were paid for the mortgages again. And those were called collateralized debt obligations. And then the Wall Street bankers said, well, what happens as these people lose their jobs? We know these loans are going to default. So what should we do? So they created an insurance vehicle called a credit default swap, CDO, and they insured the loan against default. So the banks got paid from the taxpayer for TARP, and then the banks got paid from the insurance company when the loans defaulted. So basically the banks have been paid twice. What this bill does is it allows the banks to continue to commit fraud, because one of the only things that the homeowner can do should they face foreclosure is demand that the bank give them their original closing package with the recorded deed and mortgage and title. Otherwise, if you don't have that, when you pay off your note, who are you paying? Well, the banks can't produce those because they don't have them, for the most part. And many that they did find were not signed by the proper officers. So there was a fraud there. That was called robo-signing. They had hired people to come into a room and sign somebody's name. I swear to these documents. I saw these documents. I'm the vice president of the bank. All of that. They called that robo-signing, and they're still doing that today. Now, what this bill does is it allows the banks the consumer to say to the bank, "I want to see my closing document." Well, I want to see my closing document. I want to see my closing document. Bank will stall. All of a sudden, you're in court because this bill shortens the time frame. The bank, the judge, can turn to the bank and say, "Do you have the closing documents?" And the bank could say, "Sure, they're in our office in Cincinnati." We'll pick on Cincinnati. "They're in our office in Cincinnati. Would you sign an affidavit for that?" "Oh, sure, I'll be happy to." So the bank that just committed billions of dollars in fraud is now going to sign an affidavit that they have the original documents. Now, under normal circumstances, we have due process in our country, still, I think. And what that means is that you as the homeowner do not have to prove that the bank committed fraud. You just have to prove that the bank doesn't have your documents, or that there was a reason for your foreclosure, or that the bank refused to negotiate with you, or a host of other things. But you don't have to prove that the bank committed fraud. This bill changes that and puts the onus onto the homeowner, making the defendant have to defend themselves in you becoming guilty and the bank having to prove nothing because they then become innocent. So it flips around due process and takes that away from the homeowner. In addition to that, should we be so lucky as to be able to win in court, you will not be allowed to get your home back. But you can, as I was told, well, Karen, you can go and sue the bank. So let me get this straight. I just lost my job. I just lost my house. I paid an attorney who didn't know what they were doing, and I lost that money. And then I had to go and face the bank by myself. And now you're telling me that in order for me to get the money that I was awarded because the bank committed fraud, I now have to sue a multi-billion-dollar bank. How is that going to be? How's that going to work out? Well, it's not. So this is what our legislator criminals have done in Tallahassee, because they were told by their lobbyist friends that all of this horrible housing situation is the fault of the homeowner. And how dare that poor homeowner sit in that house for a year without paying anything? Well, let's take a look at that, too. Let's say the homeowner went through foreclosure or is trying to negotiate with the bank. Chances are that homeowner spent a fortune fixing up their house because that's what was going on. People were buying old houses. They were spending a fortune on fixing them up. They didn't sit there for nothing. They paid an attorney. Who knows what that cost? But our legislators were convinced that this whole mortgage meltdown was the fault of the homeowner because they refused to pay their mortgage. And this is what I was told when I testified. And I was also told, oh, we don't have to discuss the fraud anymore. They've already admitted that they committed fraud. This has nothing to do with the fraud, Ms. Schoen. Excuse me, this has everything to do with the fraud. If the banks didn't commit fraud and weren't paid twice to begin with, we wouldn't even be having this bill. But worse than that, the banks are refusing to take possession of the properties. So they will go through foreclosure, and instead of saying to you, gee, Karen, we've taken over your house, but if you want to stay there and pay us rent, we'll be happy to let you stay there. And then this way, the neighborhood won't be destroyed and you can stay there until we sell the house. They don't do that. They say get out of the house. Well, what happens when you get out of the house and you leave it vacant? People come in, squatters come in, vandals come in. All of a sudden, the grass doesn't get cut. The windows get broken. The neighborhood then begins to deteriorate. And my neighbor who said, oh, I don't have to think about you because you're in foreclosure and I'm not, all of a sudden begins to lose the value of their home also. So this affects everyone. Now, why don't the banks want to take possession of the houses? Well, they don't want to take possession of the houses because if they do, then they will have to pay the fees and taxes that they have been avoiding for the last several years. So what this bill does is it says the homeowner will now have a shortened time. The bank will then get possession. The bank will have plenty of time because nobody will be going after them for anything because you can't anymore. And then they will be able to get all of those properties together after they've let them deteriorate. And then they can turn around to an international hedge fund who will come in and buy up blocks and blocks and blocks of houses. And that's what's going on in California and in Detroit. And in Detroit, it is the Muslims that are moving in. And in California, it's the Chinese, the communist Chinese. It's not a pretty picture. And it's destroying our country. And this is all part of the concept of globalization. So when Rick Scott gets on his plane and flies to France to bring in more global conglomerates into the state of Florida so that he can say, yay, we brought in another 220,000 jobs, rah, 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 I want you to think, immigration, no borders. Lots of illegals. Where are they going to work? I'm going to bring in international companies. What do international companies need? Cheap labor. Are you getting the picture? This is all connected. And the whole purpose of all of this was to redistribute the wealth, take the money out of the hands of the middle class and put it in the hands of the big bankers and the globalists and the New World Order people and the progressives or whatever name we want to give them, although I really like the name controllers.
Yeah, I like to call them the powers that shouldn't be. That's what I like to call them. I'm going to cut us off, Karen, because the break's sneaking up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a serious issue. And it not only affects Florida, too, but I guarantee you, if you check in your own home state, there's the same type of schemes going on. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. I want to get right back into it for time reasons with Karen, but I want to ask her. I've been making her, I've been keeping her on the edge for the past 2.5 minutes. I have a question about Governor Rick Scott, and I wouldn't ask her during the break. I'd rather get a raw answer from her here. So, Karen, real quick, before we pick up where we left off, because I know, like you said, Rick Scott, he's been bringing, different global conglomerates over here, whatever, different global companies from other countries. So is he knowingly a part of this, or is he just one of these hanger-ons who's trying to get more of his, more for himself and more of his own personal power by latching onto people he thinks are bigger and more powerful than himself?
Well, I would have said the latter until I was told that he has been visiting and has visited Jeb Bush. So with that, he's, as far as I'm concerned, he's now on the dark side. He knows what he's doing. Because I believe, and I can't verify this, I mean, it would only make sense, is that something was said about, you want to get reelected, you want us behind you, then do this. And the reason why I can say that is because I work with a lot of RECs, that's the Republican Executive Committees. Many of them have written resolutions against Agenda 21 and against Common Core. And now they're getting called and emailed and mailed from Jeb Bush's foundation to stop on the Common Core business and to tell everybody how much they love it. So something's rotten in Denmark.
Yeah, anytime you hear the Bushes mentioned,
yes,
at all.
Yep.
And I heard somebody had said something to me about, do I think that Jeb Bush will run? Well, I mean, if Hillary Clinton runs in 2016, then they'll probably have Jeb Bush versus Hillary Clinton. So, I mean, you choose. Which continuing legacy do you want to continue on? The faux right legacy or the faux left legacy? Because either way, it's the same garbage.
Yes, and we keep on saying that, so we have to do something about it now. And I've been thinking about this for a long time. We keep on saying it, and then we keep on going back and electing the same criminals over and over again. And we had 54 seats in the Florida legislature, in the Florida Congress, of people who ran unopposed. That's disgusting. We need people to run for office. So we need two things if we want to do anything, and we have to start locally and in our state first, because we have a huge line of defense here that is not being used, called the 10th Amendment, and we do not have to take this garbage, because it is. Rick Scott just signed the Wildlands Corridor, and he's so excited that they're going to give more land to the United Nations, and it'll start in the Everglades and go all the way up to Georgia. And those of us that know Agenda 21 and know Dr. Kaufman's map, all you have to do is take the Wildlands corridor map and overlay it, and boom, you have Dr. Kaufman's biodiversity map. So we know what the game plan is. We know what the plan is. We know what they're doing. If we don't elect people and we don't get good people to run for office, shame on us. This is where we as conservatives fall down. We have a tendency to not want to get involved and to tell people, oh, go look, here it is. Go look it up, read it for yourself, and make your own decision. That doesn't work anymore. We have to get involved.
They're grabbing land down here in South Florida already. They've been doing it in Dade County. There's a lot of people starting to fight it now because their farms and stuff out in like western Dade County are getting ganked from them. And in fact, I'm going out to interview the lady that owns Pop's Range. People can look it up.
I will get you Jose Fernandez. He has been through hell and back with fighting with Durham, and thank you, Marco Rubio, for bringing us Harvey Rubin, because when Jose went to his office, and he's the Miami-Dade clerk of courts who also wears his ICLEI hat, because he was the vice chair of ICLEI, and he said individual property rights will have to take a back seat for the good of the collective. People on this 8.5 mile area lost everything. 2 or 3 people committed suicide. I think this was about 400 families. Thriving farms, thriving ranches. One man lost his stable and his horses. Durham made them take everything down to the bare rock. And now they're losing their properties because they can't pay the taxes, because even though they were told that they are in wetlands, they still are being charged for the taxes as though they were in dry land.
Oh, isn't that special? So they get them coming and they get them going. I'm going to pause us right there, but I want to continue with this because this is something a lot of people don't know about, and it's going to lead into an interview that I had mentioned that I'm going to do in the beginning of the show. I had mentioned something. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. Karen and I will be back in exactly 59 short seconds. Seriously, 59 seconds. You know how it is. 59 short, quick seconds. Boom. We will be right back, and when we do, we're going to continue with this. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. It is June 13th, 2013, and tonight I am joined by my special guest, Karen Schoen, and we've been talking about Agenda 21, this new House bill that's going on with the bankster mortgage frauds and everything else. But I want to stay focused on this Agenda 21 thing really quick. And going into break, Karen and I were discussing the people losing their houses and land and farms and ranches and things down here in South Florida. And the first segment here is really, really quick, Karen. We have about 3 minutes before we go to break, and then when we come back, we'll have a nice long segment. But you know exactly what I'm talking about, obviously, because you were just bringing it up. They're taking that land, and this dovetails in with the lady that owns a place called Pop's Range. It's a private firearms range down here. A couple of years ago, I've been out there to shoot a few times. I'm a member, but a couple of years ago, I had interviewed her, and she was telling me back then that we'd put a video together for that the feds were trying to take her land, and it was a little less clear as to why. Now I understand. I'm willing to bet it's connected to this whole wetlands thing, this Agenda 20, the whole Agenda 21 connection. And what they're going to do is they want to literally take her land and make it part of this wetlands. And I'm going to end up going out and interviewing her. People can go look it up. It's called Pop's Range. It's a shooting range that law enforcement uses. It's like a private shooting range club. The lady owns it. Her husband owned it before she did. He left it to her in his will. It's private land that they've had forever, and they decided to use it as a shooting range, and she also lives on it. And they want to literally kick her off the land, and they try to find every reason possible. I haven't talked to her in a few years, so I'm actually interested to see what their excuse is. But you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. They use every... what happens is I will go to you. Let's say I'm from the Sierra Club, and I see your property, and I'll try to talk you into a conservation easement or something where you're going to give up the rights to your land, and you say, no, I don't really want to sell it. I'm not interested. I don't want to sell it. Well, then about a couple of months later, all of a sudden you're going to become some environmental group like DERM, which is in Miami-Dade, and they're going to knock on your door, and they're going to say, you're in wetlands. Well, wait a minute. My family lived here for 30 years, and there's no wetlands anywhere, and it's not on the map of the Army Corps of Engineers, and it's not registered in my county, and it doesn't say wetlands on my title, and I'm not paying any kind of insurance for wetlands. And that's too bad. We're from the government, and you will get off your property. But we'll let you keep it. But all of those, your nursery, hundreds of thousands of dollars of crops, of animals, of life, retirement homes, people who lived there for years and years and years. Well, they want the land because communists do not believe that individuals have rights to property, because rights to property leads to ownership and wealth, and that is not sustainable because everybody has to have the same thing, which is nothing.
You can't have that.
You can't have, that's right.
Can't have that in their little collective. I'm going to cut us off right there because the break's sneaking up. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. Again, short break. It's only 59 seconds, and we come back. Karen and I are going to have a nice long, about 14.5-minute segment to get into this. So do not go anywhere. We will be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Nice long segment here. So when Karen and I were cut off real quick, we were discussing communism, the collective, right? That's what's going on. And communism, you have to understand, again, as I've said, go read None Dare Call Conspiracy is a good way to understand some of the roots of what's called communism, really, right? It's really Illuminism, which goes back to Weishaupt, which then, he was Jesuit trained, and we could continue to go down that rabbit hole. The point is, it's the powers that shouldn't be, whatever you want to call them, they're these authoritarians that they want to control every aspect of your life, okay? And they want to use it's for the better good excuse. And then afterwards, they're going to have to start culling everybody because, hey, it's only for the better good. All right? It's really never for the better good. It's only for their good. I mean, think about it. They're the ones that still drive around in SUVs and all this. Like Al Gore, we need to charge you for your carbon footprint. Yet his house is, I think, one of the biggest offenders, or if you wanted to look at it that way, in the country. He uses a ton of electricity. That guy, and he's gonna tell you that, hey, you that lives in a 1-bedroom apartment, you need to turn your lights off 3/4 of the day because you use too much electricity. Like, I couldn't make this up, Karen. This is how these people think.
Well, now we have to go back to the full picture, and that's Agenda 21 encompasses everything. It is 350 pages, 40 chapters with 4,000 regulations controlling every aspect of human activity. So in order for them to get people to buy into this, they had to take the economy, the environment, equity, tie it in a neat little bow, call it sustainability, and then teach all of this junk in school so that people would become subservient sheeple, because now instead of having school, we have school to work. So we're going to train you instead of educate you. There's a big difference between education and training. So our kids today are going to school, and they are being trained in the Pavlovian, for those of us that remember, Skinner method, which is stimulus response, stimulus response, stimulus response, until eventually, just like your pet at home, if you give the child something to do, they will respond without thinking. And that's what's going on. What is the answer when a kid can't figure something out? Oh, I'll get an app for that. The government will tell me how to do it. The government will show me. I don't have to think about it. And that's what school has become. So we're training the people in school to work, to do more for less. Mandatory volunteerism, that's my favorite word. Kids now have to go out and do things in their community. Well, I have nothing wrong with a kid doing something in their community. That is very important and very noble. But that does not come from school. That comes from the parents. What do the parents want? What values? The values are supposed to come from home. Mom and dad, or mom or dad, teach values. The church reinforces and offers guidance. And the government is only supposed to be there to help with the rules and regulations and to make sure that everybody follows the same rules.
But we live in bizarro world. We live in bizarro world where that doesn't happen, Karen. And you know, there's something else, too, that goes along with that training in the school. Did you notice that a lot of kids are getting in trouble now? There's a lot of stories coming out recently, and I'm sure it's been happening for a very long time, where they defend another student in school from an attack or something, and the kid doing the defending of the other child is actually getting in trouble, and they're yelling at him and saying, "You shouldn't have gotten involved. You should have just ran and got a teacher." The recent case in Canada I talked about, and I've seen all these other cases throughout the country.
Okay. Because the relationship, that's an individual relationship which cannot exist. Think about what the Nazis did and the kids in school and how they reported on each other, because who was their allegiance to? It wasn't to my friend. It was to my school. I'd go and get everything from the school. They're switching the allegiances so that government is now God, school is now your family, and America is now the United Nations. And as soon as everything is completed, then we have totally transformed America. That's what that meant when he said we're going to transform America. So in America, we have God and person. God gives us our rights. Under communism, we have government, person. Man gives you your rights. Whatever man gives you, man can change or take away. God doesn't do that. So God must be replaced by government. And that's what communism is all about. And what's happening now is they must take away the individuality and teach to the emotional portion of the brain. Everything must be emotional. There cannot be no thought, cannot be any thought process. There can be no thought process. There's no logic. Kids can't prioritize anything. One of the beauties when I taught math, of teaching math, was that you learned how to prioritize, to put things in order, and you were then able to take that concept of putting things in order, making things priority, making a plan, figuring out whether you're going to add, subtract, multiply, or divide, so you're figuring out your procedure, and then you're going to chart your results. You can apply that to everything. But if you don't know it, you can't apply it to anything, so they don't teach it. What they teach is emotion, emotional triggers, and then they use emotional trigger words. There's a book called Voices, and it's a six-year-old, so it's a first, second grade book. And they do things in the books because we are so busy worrying about the distractions that nobody pays attention to what the kids read. So one of the sentences might be something like, Mom, blank, clean up your clothes. Mom tells you to clean up your clothes. Mom nags you to clean up your clothes. What do you think the right answer is? The right answer is nag. What are they learning? Mom nags you. Because that's what gets repeated. So when you're using emotional trigger words, all of a sudden your child becomes an emotional trigger. And when you take away a child's individuality, they still want to be an individual. Just because you don't want them to be one, just because you want them to be exactly the same. Imagine going to school, dropping your kid off, picking your kid up, and you get to school and every child looks exactly the same. Well, school doesn't do that to their looks, but it's doing that to their mind. There's no individuality. And kids still want to be individuals. So what do? They pierce, they pluck, they drink, they do drugs, they do things to be noticed because they still want to be noticed. And they can't be noticed in school because nobody says, oh, you got 100, we're going to give you 3 gold stars. No, you get a gold star for coming to class. What excitement is that? What are you showing? What gratification do you have? And then they use the computers, which of course ties everything together, because now people are beginning to realize through data mining, it's not just the IRS that's data mining. Every agency is data mining. And school is data mining also. And what's going to happen in school is that your child might come to school and say, teacher might have a lesson and say, how many children in the class, their parents belong to a Tea Party? How many children in the class belong to the Republican Party or this party or whatever? Or do this or do that? Does mommy and daddy recycle the garbage? Well, these are going to be recorded. That's what data mining is. And then your child, by their answers through a series of algorithms, will be guided into a job because it's school to work. So the computer, instead of you and your child, will pick your child's occupation. And if you don't think that's happening, I got a letter from a person in Czechoslovakia who reads our reads our website, which is agenda21today.com and saveamericafoundation.com. They read our website. And I got a letter from someone in Czechoslovakia, and she said, please don't let this happen into the schools. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a scientist. That's all I talked about. As I was growing up, that's all I could think about. And the school and government decided I was going to be an engineer, and I am an engineer. So this is where we're headed. Your child's destiny, which is your choice, will be chosen by the government. And who's telling you how wonderful this is? Well, what does Bill Gates do? He goes to Congress and he says, our kids are stupid. We can't get enough smart kids in school, so we have to have these school-to-work training programs, and we have to put everything on computers, and we have to change the whole system. And what does Bill Gates get out of this? Billions of dollars, as everybody will now have to use his Microsoft and his whatever program he's putting in it. And this is what is happening with Jeb Bush. Same thing. He's monetarily, the shift into Common Core is only to make money. It's not about the kids. They could care less about the kids. All they want is cheap labor, cheap labor, cheap labor. And on the other side, people like myself, we don't have children in school. Now, I don't mind paying for education, but I do mind paying for training, because an industry, you decide, I want to be a car painter. I want to paint cars. This is what I want to do. Okay, the school doesn't train me to paint cars. The place where I'm going to work is going to train me. All of a sudden, who's paying for the training? Now, I don't mind paying for education, because that's what school is supposed to be. But not when our kids are not learning English. Our kids are not learning how to write. They're not learning how to read. They're not learning how to do math. And now, all of a sudden, we're going to spend an X number of billions of dollars making sure that Jeb Bush, his brother Neil, Bill Gates, Pearson, which, by the way, is made up of Saudis and Kuwaitis and Chinese and Russian investors in these companies, will be making billions of dollars as we turn our hard taxpayer dollars over into the next education fad, unproven, untested, not even told to parents, teachers, or the legislature. And here it is, and we're going to spend billions of dollars on it.
You know, the Chinese are buying or they bought they're in the middle of building a city, like out in it's like a 1 square mile or something out in the middle of,
Idaho.
Yeah, Idaho. Out in the middle of nowhere. And it's going to be literally, that section is like Chinese land, right? It's considered Chinese.
Yes, there are 240 of these in our future as our government steals our land. That's where all of this is going.
That's absolutely disgusting. Are they all Chinese, all these little cities?
No, some of them are Russian. Isn't that nice?
Oh, that's so. What are we just selling chunks of land to the highest? But you know what? We got a break sneaking up.
Of course, you know why?
You know what?
Because we're in debt. You see, that was the whole point. We had to be in debt because you can't pay us your debt.
I'm going to cut us off, Karen, because the break's sneaking up. But I want to pick up on the other side with this. This is super, super important. We're selling off chunks of our country, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Think about that while we go to break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. But before we get back into it, I want to give Karen a minute or two here, and I want her to take as much time as she needs. Karen, plug everything that you do, any groups that you want to throw out there, radio shows, podcasts, blogs, anything, because I know you do a ton of work, so go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. Our main site is agenda21today.com, and that gives you the agenda, the plan, the history, and we work on solutions. Our site, America is My Name, we're building that now, and we are putting there forgotten history, things that people don't know that have been taken out of our schools. And we're hoping that this will assist people who are homeschoolers get back to the concept of what America is. Then we have Florida FL against Common Core EDU.org, and that stands for Floridians Against Common Core Education, and that talks all about Common Core. SaveAmericaFoundation.com, and wonderful website, news, up-to-the-minute information of things that are going on all around us. And then the Panhandle Patriots, because that's where I am a director and I live in the Panhandle. And the radio show is American Freedom Watch Radio, and we are on Blog Talk Radio, American Statesman, and we are on RedStateTalkRadio.com. So the show is broadcast on both areas. And thank you. We also have a Thursday night webinar, and we talk to AgEnders all over the country fighting these battles so that we can share with each other, because what goes on in California and Oregon and Washington also comes to Florida and New York and New Jersey, all of those places. So if we know what's happening, it makes it easier for us to fight them. And the one thing that I did want to say is you have to get involved. You must get engaged. This is really important. And the easiest way to take down any one of these plans, it's very simple. Learn about the plan and always ask two very important questions. Where is the evidence or scientific evidence that this has ever worked any place ever before? There isn't any place. It doesn't matter what plan. The plans are designed not to work. Every single plan will never work. They are designed for three reasons. Money, yours, they want it. Power, they want power over you, and they will control you using these plans. That's all they're for. They're not to work. The other thing is, I tell everyone, all of these plans have to think like this. Nothing happens randomly. Everything happens for a reason. Everything is connected. So you can't think about the IRS spying and then think that that's an isolated incident, because every agency is spying. So what should be the takeaway from the IRS? The takeaway should be spying. That's what the key is, spying. So you have to think everything is connected. And then the last one, which is always the hardest for people to get, is that everything is a lie. Everything they have been telling us for the last 50, 60 years is based on lies. The only place where any of these programs work, no matter what they are, whether they are weather programs, climate programs, sustainability programs, visioning programs, water management programs, you name it, the only place they work is on a computer model in some office someplace, because they're all being manipulated. And they're all there to control us, because that's all they care about. And they want us to die. That's a hard one to say, but they do. They have no regard for the individual. They think like Stalin. The death of one is sad, unhappy, too bad. The death of millions is just a statistic. That's the way they think. So your life is not important. You are only as good as how well you can work for the government or a government-sanctioned business. Everything is always based on that. And if you look at any of the stuff in schools, you come back with any of the materials and you go through them, and you listen to some of the commercials, they are now even calling the people human capital.
All right, I'm going to pause this right there, Karen. I'm going to pause this right there because the break's sneaking up. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We will be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Nice long segment. So, Karen, you mentioned something earlier not only are we selling land to China, but Russia is buying land. So we're literally, well, not we, but we're sitting back and watching the powers that shouldn't be, these scumbag bankers, in many of the instances, literally taking this supposed debt that we have, which actually it's fictional, right? If you actually do anything, it's fictional. It's not real. But they've created this fictional debt and gotten people to buy into it, and now they're, in order to repay that debt because of the money and the loans and everything, they're selling off chunks of our country, chunks of our land.
This is exactly what they did in Africa. All the money that we've given to the UN, this is exactly what they did. They give it to the dictators. They put in these sustainability programs. They go over and, quote, train the people. They give them a pittance of money. Of course, there's no money because there's no jobs. There's nothing that they're creating or doing or anything that will generate revenue. And then all of a sudden they have to get repaid. So they are stealing the wealth of Africa, all the minerals, and they're doing the exact same thing here. Look who is in the Panama Canal, China. Look who took over Afghanistan, China, all the minerals. Afghanistan has one of the largest mineral reserves in the world. China is now taking the minerals. And this is going on in California, and the land that China, Communist China, let's call them their right name, Communist China has, is rich with natural gas. How did they get that? They stole it from the farmers. Remember a couple of years ago when they shut off the water to the farmland in the San Joaquin Valley? And all those poor farmers went out of business, and we couldn't figure out why Congress couldn't get those morons to turn back on the water? Well, the international hedge funds are now buying that property. And they have discovered a whole bunch of minerals under there. See, in America, we're the only country in the world, which we won't have much longer, that when you buy your property, you own what is above it and what is below it. And now they're attacking water, telling the farmers they don't own their own water. But we owned, if you found oil or you found diamonds or minerals or whatever on your property, you own it. In other countries, the government owns it. Well, this doesn't sit very well. How can we be a role model for the rest of the world if we're allowed to own things and the rest of the world isn't? So when you hear Joe Biden say one world government with a new world order, and we will level the playing field, he does not mean bring everybody else up to the standards of America. He means bring America down to other standards. And that's what this procedure is. And that's why when Rome is burning, Obama is campaigning, because he wants Rome to burn. Communists or controllers, they cannot have a middle class that has wealth. And there's a wonderful website from Dr. Michael Kaufman, a friend of who has put together the biodiversity map. He read the biodiversity treaty and got Congress to stop, which is important because it's the power of one person, which is the beauty of America. So he was able to stop the biodiversity treaty with him and his team of scientists one day before it was supposed to be signed. So there is hope for the immigration bill. We just have to get engaged, and we have to get engaged loud and in force, and we have to do the same thing with Common Core. This is a group of thugs. There are less of them than us, which is why they keep on telling us that the world is too populated. I mean, think about it. They keep on telling us that there's an overpopulation and we're going to run out of food.
Are they connected to Common Purpose over in the UK?
Uh-huh.
Is that like all, because I know they do the same thing over there pretty much. They're, it's all about
it's a different name. Different name, same program. That's the other thing you learn. All of these vision programs for all these towns that they paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for these planners to produce, they're all the same plan. All they did was replace in their PDFs and PowerPoints, and they bring back, it's all the same information, and it's all filled on with garbage. And it never, never, never says this is the budget. Because there is no budget. It's never ending. It is, that sucking sound you hear is the money that's leaving your community the minute you say yes to sustainability. Now, that doesn't mean that we should go out and abuse the earth. That's not the purpose. But we have to understand what the truth is. And the truth, I had scientist John Casey. I will give you his information also. He is the author of a book called Cold Sun, and his website is called spaceandscience.net. And his group of scientists have been screaming for the last 7 years that the Earth is getting colder, which now all of a sudden NASA has decided there is no global warming. Yay, 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 we're lucky, we bought time, but it's coming and the oceans are going to rise 4 to 20 feet. And that's going to happen. Because the Earth and the climate, which is controlled by the sun, not man, goes through a cycle. And right now we are going into a cold cycle, and we're going to have extreme cold with extreme weather over the next 60 years. Now, what is our government telling us? It's going to be warm. What are they pointing at? It's the fault of carbon dioxide. What else are they telling us? We're going to run out of food. So think about that. They're saying it's going to be warm. It's really going to be cold. They're telling us carbon dioxide is bad. Why? Because plants need carbon dioxide to produce. What do plants produce? Food. What are they telling us? Food shortage. You see the way the game works. This is called controlling the people. Because what happens, let's say, as John said, very, very strong possibility, because of course nobody hears the weather around the world. We only hear the weather in our immediate area. If we knew the weather around the world, we would know that it's getting very cold all over the rest of the world. The scientists are concerned that the farmers will be planting, and then in the middle of July you could have a frost. Well, that would kill all the wheat, all the corn, all of everything. Yes, we would have a food shortage. Wouldn't you think that the UN, whose sole purpose is to take people out of poverty and make sure that nobody's hungry, would concentrate on growing food? No, what are they doing? They're putting farmers out of business because they want to control the food so they can depopulate the planet, because there's too many people for them to control. And if they got rid of a couple of billion of us, according to Ted Turner, he feels that we should be about 500 million. And Bill Gates, though he's nicer, he said that the world could exist with 1 billion people. So there's 5 billion people too many. So what do? We have programs about abortion. We promote gay marriages. We do all kinds of things to stop reproducing. That's all of these programs. That's what they're all about. Why? Because they have us convinced that there are too many people on the planet. And they do that, and they talk about that, but they never do a person-to-land ratio. So they never tell you, too many people where? Too many people living in New York? Possibly. Too many people living in Dallas? Possibly. Too many people living in Oklahoma? I don't think so. So if we took all the people in the United States, all 300 million of us, and gave every family a quarter of an acre of land, we would all fit in the state of Ohio. So how is that too many people? You have to go past what they say and understand that they're lying. And their lying is lying for a reason.
We have more empty houses in this country than we do homeless people.
That's right. And why do we have homeless people? I mean, the whole programs, what they're saying does not make sense. Why do we have hunger if the goal of the United Nations, how many billions of dollars have we given the UN? And by the way, Bill and George, baby, where is the $2 billion that we the people gave to the UN and they gave to Bill and George for Haiti? Why are people in Haiti still living like the earthquake was 2 days ago? Where was that money? $2 billion should have put a mansion.
Oh, yeah, when they said just send your cash. I know you want to send blankets and water. Yeah. Just send your cash. I'm actually quoting them.
Yeah. This is all about money, power, and control. It has nothing to do about being nice and caring about fellow man because they do not care. The core controllers, and I'm not talking about the liberals who want to do something nice for somebody. That's not who I'm talking about. They've taken advantage of the environmental people and pushed them to an edge to where it doesn't make sense. How does it make sense that all animals and plants and rocks and trees and water and dirt and humans are all equal? This is what they're telling our kids. We're all equal. Okay, so the first time I heard that, I said, all right, we're all equal. Well, I went home and I said to my cat, make me dinner. She didn't make me dinner, so I don't think we're equal. She doesn't do the laundry. She's not vacuuming. That's not equality. It doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to make sense. It's just supposed to sound good and feel good, because all they want from your kids out of school and you is that you will become a bobblehead. You will go to work at your government job and come home and watch government TV of some kind of nonsense, and you'll be in la-la land until you get up and you go work in the morning again. And this is what their dream of the American dream is. This is not America, but we are not being taught individualism. We're not being taught exceptionalism. They have no idea about the free market. I got a letter from the Bush Foundation that one of the reasons they feel Common Core is important is because every state might have had different textbooks, and they would be subject to the pricing of those textbook companies. Well, hello, that is called free market, and that means that every state has the ability to negotiate with the textbook company what they want. But if everybody's learning the same thing, and everybody has to do the same books, and everybody has to follow the same procedure, what happens to all those independent textbook companies? Well, they go out of business. And then everybody follows what the government says they should be doing over and over and over again until people are void of thinking. And we're getting very close to that right now.
Well, that's exactly what we're getting to. I mean, literally, as you look at the kids that are coming out of the schools now, you can see they're starting to pump it out. I mean, I played a clip before from New Jersey where they're thinking about when they pull people over, they want to have a law where, it's license, registration, insurance, and cell phone. So the cop can go through your phone if you were in an accident and see if you were texting or making a phone call while you were driving. And there were people, I bring it up because there were people that, like the younger generation, was like, oh, yeah, I think it's totally okay. I don't see anything wrong with it. You know, you shouldn't be using your phone when you're driving anyway because it's against the rules. And it's just like, I wanted to smash my head into the wall. But I'm going to cut us off because we got the break sneaking up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in just a few short minutes. Final segment coming up with tonight's guest, Karen Schoen. Go check all her websites out and all the links she gave out. Go check all the information out. We'll be right back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment. If you haven't taken away anything tonight, take away this. Agenda 21 is real and it's bad. And if someone tells you, oh, it's a conspiracy theory, no, it's not. It is real. I mean, they want to put us in these little tiny, like 200 by 200 apartments, and they want to stack like 2 or 3 people dorm room style in there. And if you think I'm lying, go look at what they're doing in New York now. The new fad in New York is to get people into these some of these hotels are renovating their hotels, and they're doing literally like 200 or 250 by 250 hotel rooms, and it's 3 people in a hotel room like a dorm. Apartments are doing the same thing. It's 200 by 200, and everything folds up into the walls. And people can say, "Oh, that's so cool." Yeah, maybe if you designed your apartment that way because you owned it for 20 years and you designed it that way for use because you live in it. But they're literally designing the apartments that way for you to get used to living like that. Okay, it's not like someone, in some instances, someone might own an apartment and it's tiny and they modify it to add different, technological advancements over the years. But they're literally building new apartments now that they're finding what they're doing is they're taking these older buildings and they're renovating them, and then when they renovate them, every apartment in the building is 200 by 200, and that's it. It's like living in everything folds away. It's like living almost in like a nice version of if you were flying first class, it's like that. Everything folds away, and you have some room and stuff. It's like that on a little bit bigger of a scale, and that's your house, 200 by 200, and that's it. And that's what they want to get everybody into. Because remember, they don't want you living out in the country. They want to get everybody out of the country into the big city, and then they want to change the big city into these mega cities. And Plandopolis. I couldn't make this up. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look up on the internet, Plandopolis. Joe Joseph and I did a broadcast on this last year. In fact, him and I are going to have to do another one about this. We played the audio. There's 4 different things that they have. And I don't want to go into it too much because we only got a few minutes left with my guest. But look, Agenda 21 is real. Now, Karen, we got about 3 minutes left. What are your final thoughts on this? If you could leave the guests with anything, what would you leave them with?
Yes. The most important thing we do as AgEnders is truth, education, conversation, and action. It is nothing worse than learning all of this and doing nothing. So you got to do things. We have to change. Unfortunately, we have to transform the way we live. Right now, when I go into a store and I buy something, I don't buy it unless it's made in America because I know where the food is coming from, and all you got to do is look and see where the fish is coming from, and you'll never eat fish again. And I make a big deal of it, too. When I go over to the fish counter, I say, I want fish from America. And I talk like that. When I get a customer service person, I say, please switch me to an American in America. Where are you located? I want to talk to an American. So that's one of the things that we can do. The other thing that we can do is in your family. It is so important. 1 day a week, shut off everything. No electronics. Just live without electronics. Talk to each other. Learn about things. Pick up things you would never do before. Read a book that you would never do before. Classic. Work with your kids. Tell them what this is all about, because soon they will lose it. And I'm talking about my generation who are seniors who happen to be talking to their generation who are their kids who have grandkids. And by the time their great-grandkids will be born, they will be slaves to communism unless we take care of this now. And we have to get engaged with our elections and our elected officials. We're not used to going to meetings. We don't like to be nasty. We don't like to tell them what they're doing. Well, you know what? They're doing wrong. They've got their hands in our pocket. They are stealing us blind. They are stealing our country. Communists will not allow inheritance. Nothing. They will not allow your children to have anything. Remember, one of the most important things in America is private property, and it's not just land. It's your intellectual property also. It's yourself. It's your business. And it does not belong to this disgraceful, disgusting group of people who need to be imprisoned. And that's the other thing. We need to impeach Obama and try him for treason. And we're not going to do it unless we get engaged. So we have to get engaged. We have to stay on top of things. We have a newsletter that goes out. Sign up on agenda21today.com. Start getting our newsletter. Start listening in on some of the conference calls. Listen to shows like yours. Work with other people. But taking back our country does not mean sitting at the TV and watching Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly and throwing socks at the TV because you're mad. That's not the way this works.
Well said. Well said. Karen, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I appreciate it, and, I know you're a busy lady. Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time, and I wish I had another 2 hours to pick Karen's brain, but it's all right. I'll have her back on sooner rather than later. Anyway, educate yourself about Agenda 21 and take a breather after this heavy show. Go hang out with your kids, your wife, your husband, whatever. Give them a kiss. Remember, we're going to get through this. Don't worry. We will. I promise. All right, we're out of here. I love you all. I'll catch you all again tomorrow night.